Good day, everyone. My name is Maryann, and I'm here to show you another block. It's from the Friendship Star family of blocks. I think I did once in the previous section. Very, very easy block to do, lots of fun. And I'm going to show you how to make 8 of these half square triangles all at once, which is really fun. Okay, to start out, there's only 2 blocks in the whole block. There's the center block, and then there's all these half square triangles. And the way you arrange them is what makes that star. You're going to trim all the half square triangle blocks to be 4.5, and then the center block is going to be a 4.5 inch block also. You're going to start out with a 10.5 inch block. That's what this was before I started. It was 10.5 inches. 2 different fabrics, and you put them face to face. You draw a line. You can use a ruler. I like this little tool because it gives you a 1/4 inch when you're done. You draw a line. Actually, I'll use this to start with to show you. Down the center, diagonal line from one point to the next. Actually, you do it against the whole square. So you're going to draw a line all the way down. And then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch to each side of that line. That's the cutting line. So you're going to sew a 1/4 inch to each side. On this one, I already cut it to show you, but that was the cut line, and here's my stitching 1/4 line down, 1/4 line down. What I do when I do this is I use something called a friction pen. It'll mark the lines so that you can sew on. This one has a little bit of it left. So you can mark your sew line a 1/4 inch, and you can mark your cutting line also. And when you iron it, it disappears, so you don't have to worry. It comes in different colors. You can get it usually at a quilt store. You can also get it over at Staples, and it's actually pretty cheap at Staples. It has this little end, which is not really an eraser, but you can use it to kind of erase if you have to. But the other thing you can do is just iron it and it's gone. So if you look at this block, it's probably hard to see, but I already did the diagonal this way and the diagonal this way. And after you do that, then you're going to make a cut halfway down. So you have to measure. This is a 10.25 inch block to start, so it's going to be half of the 10.25. So you're going to do it that way, and you're going to do it this way. It comes out to 5 1/8. Okay, so then after you have that done, you're going to take your block, and as I said, I cut them across already, and I did cut this one on the diagonal already. And once I cut these all on the diagonal, which I'm going to do now, each one of these will become 2 more blocks. So 2, 4, 6, and 8. You're making 8 of the half square triangles out of 2 pieces of fabric. It makes it go a lot quicker. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut these. And again, if you put your ruler from one corner to the next, even if you can't see the line you drew, it'll be okay. Cut away from you whenever you're cutting. In case you slip with the ruler, you don't want to cut your hand or cut your arm or anything. Through. And actually, I didn't notice before, but when I'm looking at this one, obviously off the 1/4 inch. Usually I don't worry if it's just a little bit, but this has me concerned here. It's a little bit more than what I'd like. So I'm going to take just part of that seam out and get a little closer to the 1/4 inch before I open them all up and put them together. Sometimes this seam ripper becomes your very best friend when you're doing this. So now out of this 10 1/4 inch block, you've made all 8 of your half square triangles. And the only other thing you have to cut is that block for the middle, which is a 4.5 inch block. Okay, I got all that out. I'm just gonna bring it a little closer to the 1/4 inch. That does seem a lot better now. Okay, now take each of these, set the seams. And now we're going to open up the blocks and press them towards the dark side. I guess we'll press them towards it. And as you can see, when I'm pressing them, they're left with these little dog ears on the end. We're going to trim those off after we get them all ironed off. Okay, we're going to go ahead and trim off these little dog ears. Here's another thing I was going to show you too. Most of these rulers will have these lines, and if you take that line and put it right on your seam and just move it to where you want to cut the dog ears off, you'll square up your block at the same time. It's actually coming out to, oh, that'll be okay. It's coming out to 4.5. Block here off a little bit more of that. Even your longer rulers usually will have that diagonal line, which makes it really easy to cut off those pieces at the end. When I'm quilting, I tend to use the rotary cutter to cut all this stuff off rather than scissors. It just kind of gives you a more even edge. This block here is the first one I did where the seam was a little bit off. And from the looks of things, I think it might still be a tiny bit off, but we're going to make it work. So now, what you're going to do is arrange these in some kind of design. Now, the part that I shaded in as green could be your brown, which would make you have that up and down, and then this up and that down. That would be like that. We'd have a center block, which I have here. One is the brown, so this should be this way. Okay. And this way. And this way. This way, this way, and this way. And that is your friendship block. So now I'm going to sew those parts together. You could do it this way. The other way you could do it is the exact opposite and turn each block the opposite way. And then you would have the blue crisscross and the browns and tans on the outside. Okay, so this is the design that I arranged it in. But as you can see, the person who did this block wants the center to match the outside thing. So I'll show you what it looks like with that. Okay, so that would be more like the block that they had there. So I'll go ahead and sew it in this design, but you could do it either way. You can actually flip all the outsides so that all the spokes going out would be the brown and the center would be the blue. So you can do it either way. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these together. Whenever you have a lot of those half square triangles to make for a quilt, the way I showed you to cut these is the great way. It saves so much time doing it that way. So we have those two together, and we're going to sew these two together now. So we have our first row here. And I think because the middle row we're going to be pressing towards the center, we'll press these out. This one has a little bit of fabric that's sticking out, so I'm going to go ahead and straighten that out now before we even sew it to the other piece. When you're sewing these together, you'll see you have about 1/4 of an inch here, which doesn't exactly meet, and 1/4 of an inch there. That's because when you sew it to the next block, that's going to be taken up with the 1/4 inch. I'll get ready to sew this last row. Okay. straggler here. You know what, let me press it first. My 2 end blocks came out a little bit bigger than the center for some reason. A little bit of that you can kind of fudge away and get a nice block, but if you have too much, you really do have to trim it. That's why I like to trim it as I go along. Yeah. That one. That one. And these are pressed to the inside, and these are going to be pressed to the outside. So now you have this block, the Friendship Star Family block, and I'm going to sew the 3 rows together, and your block will be complete. I'm trying to really nest those seams so they go together really well, and the seams are even once they're sewn. Okay, so these long seams. I've seen this particular block before, and on the site where I saw it, they actually called it an eccentric star block. I'm not sure why they called it eccentric, but I guess it's a little different than your usual star block. Some of the newer blocks that people have designed do have unusual names that aren't the traditional names that you would see. Usually if somebody said, I'm doing an eccentric star block, you know exactly what they were talking about. But in this case, you may not have ever heard it called that. Okay, and we'll put the last section on and our block will be complete. gonna press this way, I think. Okay, let me just even out these edges a little bit and we'll be good to go. Okay, and there is your friendship block. Another way that some people like to do this is by having the color of the post the same color as the middle. So that's another way to do it. You could also have alternated all of these blocks so that the posts would have all been the brown and the blue would have been the background. There's a lot of different things you can do with this particular block to make it your own. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. And the one thing I would really like for you to take away is how to make the 8 half square triangles out of just 2 blocks. And these were starting with the 10 1/4-inch blocks, the 2 together, and then going from there. Nice way to get a lot of the half square triangles made at one time. My seams aren't too bad. A couple little things off, but not bad. Acceptable to me. Thank you for joining us for this tutorial. Hope to see you again next time.